Hello, welcome to a new episode of Rants with Danny Shi. Today, the day of the recording is January 19th, 2025. I'm still joining you from New Jersey, and I'm joined by John Foster yet again, but from a different location. John, where are you at now?
Now I'm in Arizona. I'm back. I'm back in it, getting ready to get back to work tomorrow, and uh, yeah, start going full time now.
He's working full time with not the Oakland A's or nor the Sacramento A's, but just the A's. But you're now working with at Phoenix with their rehab facility. How like is it different? How is it different? Do you like it? Do you not like it? How long have you been with the job? Like
Yeah, I mean, and since I left, I've even if I wasn't here, I would still work a little bit here and there, online and everything. But yeah, it's so different, and it's so nice to be in my native language, and like it just seems like it just flows a little differently, although I've been doing it for so long that yeah, even with the translator, it's second nature now. But I believe that over the time of having to think a little bit more and having a little bit more time in between my sessions, or like when I would speak, that now I think that my process of talking actually it's able to be a lot quicker and a lot easier, that, and it's helped me think through things a little bit more in depth, and really kind of get my point across a little bit better, I think that's what I believe. Yeah.
you think is it because of the language barrier, or you think it's have to think about having a translator there to help translate what you want to talk about?
Sometimes I just think that, um, I have been translated for so long that, I would ask questions like, "Hey, does this translate in Chinese?" And sometimes it wouldn't. So I'd be like, "Well, how can I explain that differently then?" Like I
Mhm.
know that like the word second guess, there's no translations for that.
Yeah, like
So I
there's
was
like
like,
hesitation, but like yeah.
yeah, but there's not like a real like, don't second guess yourself.
Mhm.
So I had to find a way of like, uh you know trust your first instinct. So
Mhm.
like instead of saying it that way, I had to say trust your first instinct and go from there, and then if you fail or
Mhm.
win, then but like, so like I had to try to a few things to go around, or try to find a better way to explain what I was trying to say.
So yeah, this actually like you answered the question before asking it, because one of the listeners actually popped this question to me, which was how did you adjust to having to coach through a translator, and you already answered that without me asking the question. So one question down on the rundown, that's perfect. But like, how did you get used to it? Like, did it get any easier, or is it one of those things that you realized how much um how much you had to adjust after not having to deal with a translator, or had not having to go through a translator to talk to a player?
Yeah, it's more of, when I first got with the brothers, I got a great translator, and he was my translator all the way through. His name was Brian, you know, and I didn't have to worry about it. He had went to school at LSU, he got his degree from LSU and everything. So like, he was dead on, and I didn't necessarily have to do anything, and so, and then I had another one. I had Derek, and then I had my last one, who was Alan, and I think that we together we have to work. You are my mouth, you are my voice. So in order for me to be a good coach, I have to make sure that you're understanding what I'm saying, and that it does translate. And I notice right away, especially during a coaching situation, if I'm saying something and it's not getting through.
Mhm.
So I'll know where we're at. Well, he doesn't look like he's getting it of what we just talked about. So how about we say it a different way? So like I have to be on top of that, to just, not that everybody's perfect. Nobody is. Like, everybody makes mistakes and everything, but it's just more of that. Unless you get that language, you cannot just speak like a Native American thinking that you're going to just get your point across, because a lot of stuff does not work unless they have a native, unless they're fluent, you know, with all of the sayings and everything of how to translate those, into Chinese, into
Yeah.
Mandarin. It's just, so it's more of like an ebb and flow of like, okay, he got that. All right, so let's understand that. And then the translator too as well starts to learn my tendencies, and like,
Yeah.
and really starts to almost know what I'm going to say next, and knows how to explain that in different ways, which is huge.
Yeah. So, um, you you mentioned that you had 3 to 4 translators during your 7 year tenure with the brothers.
Uh-huh.
Now live translating is a very difficult job, and
Absolutely.
especially in a very skill specific industry like baseball, you really need to know not just the inside wording or the words that the American baseball world uses, but also the Taiwanese baseball world uses, so that you can be like that bridge. So it's very hard. It's a very difficult position. But for you, I want to ask you about the trust between you and the translator, because you had you mentioned four. I don't know how many you actually had over a 7 year period. How
At three.
important is it for how did you build that relationship between the translators? Is it a tough transition when the team kind of changes it upon for you, or would how much of a value if the team had kept the same translator for you throughout the 7 year tenure?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is it, when I'm a major league coach, I need somebody who's on top of the game who doesn't really get affected by pressure. And I don't necessarily want to see somebody who's a fan. I need somebody who's really, really on top of their game to know that we're going out there for business, because I really need to get to the point and see what's going on, because I might have something really important to say and he might have something really important to say. He'd be like, man, I'm hurting or something, or, so like, I have to make sure that we are like really on top of our game, so when I go out to a mound visit, most of the time, if you see me talking to that translator as I'm going to the mound, I'm actually telling him what I want him to say when I get out there, because I don't want to waste time when I get on the mound to actually wait for the translation. So I will talk to him as we go up, so that way once he gets there, he can say what he needs to say, and then I'll go from there. But to have the same translator, it does work. It's awesome, And some guys have had more than I have. I've only had three, and it's it's a very it's not an easy job, because not only are you going to just talk about baseball or whatever, but like you also get inside information that nobody knows, so you get to talk and you have to send people down. You have to tell them bad things, and, or you have to tell them good things too. But, telling them the bad things, telling them they're getting sent down, or telling them that, we think they're terrible, or that if they don't get any better, we're going to release them. Like those are big things, that are hard to really to tell anybody, let alone somebody, if you're a fan that and you see and you love baseball, and then you have to tell this guy who you like, he might be your best favorite player, and you have to tell him, hey man, if you don't get any better, we're going to send you down, and you possibly like find a new job, because this ain't it.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's a pretty tough thing, man, um, but yeah, and then having the same one, yes, it works good. When you get that good tight, like I said, he'll come in, like, know my tendencies, I know his, and we can I've always let my translators kind of have freedom. I don't want you to be sitting next to me the whole time. I want, like, if I need you, I'll call you. I'll be like, I like to walk around and like, hey, just stay here. I'm gonna go over here. You don't need to be with me. Like, you don't have to be my shadow. I want you to really be yourself. Have, talk to the other players, do what you want to do, kind of like give you some freedom. Though you don't have to be next to me by my side,
Gotcha. Well, because that's also one of the things I wanted to, because I've never been in that situation, but I've always been fascinated by it, and really been, thinking like, what if I was in that situation, what I would do. And I was going to say, like, if I'm a translator, especially a private one, like with you, like not just one, but with not just like a bunch of people sharing one translator, which I've seen through the broadcast, is some teams do that. Some teams do that, but for you, you have a personal translator that does that translates your things almost privately or personally, right? So if I was a translator, I would try to be as close to you as I can, so I understand what you're trying to say and how you're thinking. Not that I want to interpret it and then use my own words to say it, but then I want to make sure that whatever I'm saying has as close to meaning and as close to the way of saying it as you can if I'm a translator, because I'm not supposed to bring in my thoughts, right? I'm supposed to translate what you think. So in that case, I would want it to be a shadow of yours so that I can understand what you're looking at, I can understand what you're thinking, and understand how you're looking at different things. That's just my point of view, but I've never been in that situation.
Well, exactly what you just said is understanding that you're not trying to give your own representation of what I'm saying. That's huge, and some people do that, and they're guilty of that. And I've witnessed a lot of translators. I know it, and I see what's happening in a lot of them, and I can tell that some people do that. And it's a tough place to be, And then because you really have to tell that translator, like, look, don't summarize what I'm saying. You need to really like focus up onto what I'm saying. I don't want you to give your summary of what it is. If I'm saying too much, then please let me know, and I will cut it down and say less per session so you can get 100% of it. But yeah, and what you said, that's also part of my job too, as a what would I be, a translatee? My job is to actually educate you as well, especially if you're not into the baseball side or whatever, just to really get you on the same page on every way, shape, and form. And there's also meetings where, you have to be brutally honest. This guy sucks, and like, you have to hear those things and know that there's enough trust, and you have to understand that you are inside my circle. And if you're inside that circle, then we have to trust each other. And trusting each other means that when there's a closed door meeting, nothing gets on the outside of that. Nothing. Not to your friend, not to your family, not to your girlfriend, there's nothing goes outside, and so that's a really important part too. You gotta have somebody you can trust, so you can really believe in, to know that they're not going to go around, and because baseball's rough. It's not, it's not a contact sport, but it's definitely not a tickling contest. So, and you have to be brutally honest sometimes, especially in high profile jobs. So, sometimes you do joke around things they're not funny, but they are funny.
Yeah.
But it's all part of it, man. And that's my job as the person who's being translated for, is to educate them, make sure that they're loose, make sure they get me, I get them, make sure we're on the same page, we trust each other, and then we can go forward.
Right. And it's just, it's not just they're not sharing with somebody else, but it's also, how do you resist the temptation? Because the players are going to come up to you and ask you, hey, what they talked about, or what does Foster think of me, without actually going to John Foster, right? Like, it's so much easier to talk to the translator than
100%.
talking to the pitching coach. So I think that's also, from the translator's point of view, that's also a tough thing to navigate.
But you know what, Daniel, if they're going to ask those questions, like, they know that they could always ask me that too.
Right.
And I will tell them the truth. I don't know what other people, that has nothing to do with me, but if they really want to know the answer to that question, I will give it to them, but just be prepared for the answer.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not a person who just, like, they know they can always talk to me no matter what.
Right. Yeah, no, but we talked about before starting to record, there's just a intimidation factor, right? Intimidating factor is talking to somebody you thought, you probably have to somehow use English, even though there's a translator nearby. I get it, because I was once in that situation. Like, oh, I know this person speaks perfect Mandarin, but it's just something there that wants me to go around, and especially when there's like a, when you're like, there's a power dynamic between a coach and a player. I think that happens. I don't know. I don't want to speak for the players at all, because I'm not one, and I don't want to speak for the translator because I'm not one of them either. It's just, if I'm just speaking from my experience, I've had those situations when there's a power dynamic, like me and a teacher, or me or something like that. There's something there that it feels like, as a player, I can see the temptation to try to go to the translator rather than go to the coach, even though, that puts everybody in a tough situation. So, I think the translating dynamic is really interesting.
Yeah, that part what you just said, yes, but I'm okay with them talking to the translator, and I'm okay with that. I wouldn't ask them, hey, what were you guys talking about? Or, maybe I would sometimes, but I would say for the most part, I would encourage them to do it, because if I'm right and I'm correct, I won't say nothing to that translator I wouldn't want him to say to somebody else. So, you know, and also too, I wouldn't say anything to the translator I wouldn't say to somebody else. You know, I would tell them, but and I would suggest, and I've had that opportunity before, where the translator would say, you know, he came up to me and wanted to know this or whatever, and I said, well then, you know, just like, you don't have to say anything. Like, I'm helping him through that process, so I say, you don't have to tell him anything. You can just say, if you want to know that, just go talk to Foster yourself. You know, and most of the time they just won't. So like, I have a way to get the translator out of that situation too, so that they don't have to kind of look awkward. There's like, you know, I don't know, you just, do you want me to get Foster? We could talk about it. Like, he'll tell you. And I always tell my translator, tell him I'm open anytime. I don't care if it's 2 a.m, 3 a.m, on a Monday, on a day off, on a Saturday, raining, snowing. I don't care. Call me anytime. If you got a problem, you want to talk about something, come to my room. I'll invite you into my house with my family. Please come in. We'll talk about it. If you have a problem, anything, please come. Like, I welcome it. But most of the time, especially on the Taiwan side, they won't want to take that option.
Right.
You know, and I know Unsa has in the past. You know, I mean, that's my son. You know, but but they're the ones that, you know, most of the other guys, they kind of stay on the outside. You know, don't want to necessarily do much, and you know, but that's who they are. I don't look down upon it. It's just whatever. That's just what they do and how they believe in. So it's okay.
Well, we talked about this topic for about 15 minutes. For one, I'm fascinated by it, and two, you know, I wasn't offered. There was nothing close to it, but somebody was kind of asked me, like, "Are you interested in like being translated?" That was like a few weeks ago, and I was just like, "I'm in the U.S. I can't go back." But then ever since that, like that text, I was just like, "Oh, what would I do in those situations?" So I'm really fast. That's why we're delving into this one, because it's a very interesting conversation to have, and it's one that you know gives me a lot of perspective, because you know, if I was in that situation, what would I do? And I want to, you know, obviously hear what your perspective is. But let's jump into my original first question, which was, you know, your life as a coach and your philosophy as a coach, which is going to be the main theme of this particular interview. I want to ask you first, what is a normal day in the life as a CTBC Brothers coach? I'm talking mostly like during spring training, because that's where probably when, right now is probably when the spring training is about to start. What is like a day in the life? Like how does your day go as a pitching coach for the Brothers organization?
Well, for me, it's different. Personally, you know, I can give you me. I don't necessarily. For me, I don't really get pent up or discussing, or even try to talk for anybody else. I can just tell you what I did.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I would wake up, you know, 3-4 hours before while it's still dark out, I'd go for my hour-long run, sometimes longer. Come back, you know, get changed, get full uniform, go out and be ready for our meeting, get to our meeting, get to the team meeting. After that, we start our stretch, do whatever, and then we go into our throwing program. After that, you know, who's throwing bullpens or PFPs or into fielding practice. And if we're into the plate, we have live VPs, we have games, anything like that. You know, we have that all set up. And then afterwards, if there is no games, then we set up the next day, you know, and kind of facilitate batting practice for them with shagging and stuff like that. And then after that, you're going home. You know, you're going actually right across the street to the
right.
dorm.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, you're gonna go back into your room and you prepare for the next day. Or, you know, what I like to do is I like to write a lot, so I wrote a lot of notes. You know, I would have a notebook. I actually think I even have one here. I pulled over alongside the road and just made notes in case it's something that I missed, or like a good idea or something. And whether it be like the bullpen about a guy, if there's a certain pitcher who pitched, like say Xiaohei, right? Xiaohei is throwing, I just didn't like something, or maybe a coach had mentioned something that he said that he thinks he's not doing or whatever. I'll write that down, and then I'll kind of go in depth on that. So if there's a bullet point to actually write about, I'll sit down and I'll write about it and really, really get like in depth, trying to find out, is it a problem? Do I need to fix it? If I do, then I decide, all right, well, what's the plan? And then I try to make that game plan and then kind of see how we feel the next day and go through the next day and kind of just go from that on every single player.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, every single pitcher, at least,
Right.
you know. And then on the next day, same thing. You're just planning that spring training, making sure everybody's developed, make sure everybody's going to be ready for the season. And truthfully, may the best man win. I mean, you come to spring training ready to go, and it's exciting. Like, we want to see who's going to be the. I've always called it like a surprise. Who's going to be the surprise this year? Who's going to make the team and do well? Who nobody thought was going to. That's what I love. I love that guy who comes in and just surprises everybody. You know, I love that. You know, just kind of like Munyon in 2023. Munyon, I don't know. No, I think he's what, 71.
Let me look it up.
I think he's 71. Is he 71? Anyways, Munyon, the pitcher, real awesome kid. I mean, real skinny kid. And, you know, he came out of spring training. He came in the game with bases loaded. Early in spring training, bases loaded, nobody out, and he got out of it. And right then, that sparks, and he did it against a Korean team. And that just sparked something. It's like instantaneously. And now all of a sudden, everybody's looking at him. And, you know, truthfully, if we would have had our way up, we probably would have had him in the majors right then as a reliever. But other things happened, and we got talked out of it, to say the least.
It's number 71, Lu Meng Yang. Yep.
Yeah, Munyon. Yeah, Munyon.
Right in the picture.
And he's surprised everybody, you know, and it was like, this is awesome. Like, look at this kid. And you could just see him, like, he started to believe more. He started to, like, really get in, like, you can tell he wants to be in the majors now, even though it's his first spring training. Yeah, but like he really, this might be able to happen for me.
Yeah.
But before he never would have thought that. And so like that's kind of like the day in the life, and every day is just, it's that grind until you're finished. Like,
right. You talked about putting on a full jersey, and I saw like a short YouTube documentary all the years ago about you made it a point to make sure that whenever you're on the field, you're wearing a full jersey with everything on. And that's even that at that time, that was before Ling Weizhu took over the helm. And I remember that was when, you know, because I was at Taiwan at the time with doing the CP Twitter stuff for the league. And I remember like pregame, it was like July or whatever. And then nobody was like, everybody's just wearing t-shirt, shorts and leggings. And then like at that night, I saw your video. I was like, well, that is, you know, that's impressive. It's so hot out there, you know, playing, you know, and then you're wearing the full uniform. Tell us, like, where did that come from, and why you make it a point to do that, even in a humid, hot Taiwanese summer?
You know, it's baseball. It's a summer sport. You know, if you're worried about the heat, then go play basketball where it's indoors. It's a summer sport. But don't get me wrong. I mean, here's the sun, here's Taiwan, and here's the rest of Earth when it comes to heat. You know, so like it is one of the hottest places on Earth. But I believe that looking like a professional and having those things on a daily basis is something very, very important. And you have to be consistent on that, and it has to be somebody that you are, and somebody that you and I also was brought up that way, especially in the minor leagues with the Braves. Like, we weren't allowed to wear shorts. And so I just like the way it looks. I think it's professional. And not only that, now it's just who I am. And it's not really, I don't even think about it anymore. But people do ask me sometimes, even I know they're going to ask me here because I'm in full uni every day. I don't care. It's just because one day they ask you to take the uniform off. And I kind of want to, every time I put it on, I take advantage of every situation that I have to wear it. And I take pride in wearing it. Because it's important. It's important to be that way, to always remember where you're at and why you're here. And it's not about me. It's about those players. It's not about the brothers. It's about those players. If you ever have a coach that says something like that, you know, that takes credit for somebody doing well, he's out there for himself. I work for you as a player, you know, and I believe in that. Like, to the deepest. And I would like for the coaches, not really the coaches, especially in Taiwan, they really don't care what you wear, just like you're crazy or whatever. But I'd like the players to see that, boy, he is consistent. I mean, even on off days, on Mondays, if we'd go there and DePaula wanted to play catch or somebody needs to throw bullpen, I'm in full uni.
Right.
I don't care. I'm not like I
Just show
can
up to
count on
work, you're gonna wear the whole thing.
I can count on one hand how many times I've been to on the field during the season without full uni in 7 years. One hand.
Mm.
And a couple of those times it wasn't my fault. It was just because the laundry wasn't ready. So it wasn't even it was out of my hands. But yeah, it's a really important thing for me to just I don't and it's important for me because I don't ever want to forget that. I don't want to take it for granted where I'm at.
Right. And so when you're talking about like as a coach, um, what in your opinion, what is the most important skill as a coach in the professional baseball? Like what's the one thing that you think, it's the most essential, most significant to determine whether you're successful as a coach?
It's gonna sound weird, but somebody told me this a long time ago and I didn't believe it, but managing people. That's the biggest part. And although it's an overgeneralization, when I say managing people, that means that I need to manage the pitchers. I need to where do they go? Where's the missing pieces? Who goes where? What time? Everything. It's just managing people. It's really, really, you have to be on top of your game and be organized, be educated, and try to be fact-based, not opinion-based. Opinions do happen, but and sorry, need to happen sometimes, but they need to be addressed as opinions and not facts. But yeah, managing people, definitely managing their personalities, knowing who you can talk to, who you can be firm with, who you need to kind of be nice to. you know that's the biggest part right there. The baseball part, but you're here for a reason, so you obviously are good at it, so the baseball part will take care of itself. But managing the people and stuff, that's where it gets to be a little dicey sometimes.
Yeah. So, you worked under numerous managers with the brothers. A listener asked, they were asking more of a specific question, like during like a bases loaded, 2 outs, you need a strikeout. Who gets to determine whether the pitcher change? Who gets to determine the pitching change? But I want to ask more broadly, like under the different managers, does your power as a pitching coach, not power, but like does your influence as a pitching coach change over the course of the different regimes under head coach, under different managers? And how do you manage that? How do you manage that dynamic between you and the manager?
You have to know the manager first to know before you get into games how you want to manage games. Do you want me to make the move? Do you want to make the moves? How do you want to do this dynamic? And then you want to facilitate that. So, because ultimately the manager has to. The way I look at it is the manager has to be held accountable for the losses, and I'm the reason why we lost. That's kind of the way I look at it. So like we will lose because of pitching. We will lose because of the hitting. We won't lose because of the manager per se, for the most part. That's the way I looked at it. I want to take extreme accountability onto those actions. So I want to make sure that whether he wants me to do it or he wants to do it himself, we have to be on the same page, because when it gets down to it, it is my job on the line on certain stuff, and I need to make sure that that we see eye to eye. I never had that problem really, because I can always facilitate any personality or whatever. It got a little dicey a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
My first year, I think, just I didn't want to make a move, and I didn't want to make a move.
That was Snyder?
No, I wasn't with Snyder. Snyder was gone. I was with Budner.
Okay.
And there was just I think it was just one instant, where it was, I think it was when Kai Lin and I had an argument. That happened on the mound or whatever. I think it was that particular time, I didn't want him to come out, and I was fighting for it and whatever. And I was, go make the move. And I said, all right, well, I'll go do it. And I actually got booed when I got on the field. I'm like, oh,
Right.
because nobody wanted him to come out, neither did I. But I have to be the bad guy, and I have to do that, and I'm not going to sell out my manager and do that. I can't do that. So I take that, and then when I went and said what I had to say to Kevin, was because it was on the field, and because I'm the one out there, he did it to me.
Mhm.
And so it's
Right.
like, hey, like that was on that particular time was just, it was just like, hey man, like, don't do that to me. I didn't do anything wrong, buddy.
Sure.
Like, I would never do that to you. I would never do that to you. So don't do that to me.
Is
It
that
looks rougher, but it
right?
looked rougher than what it was, but it wasn't.
Was it the time when was he like just not staring in the eyes and he just basically threw you the ball and he left the mound, or is it
Yeah, he doesn't have to look at me or anything, but yeah, he
right?
just, before I even got out there, he just threw the ball and just took off. And
Right.
I was like,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but you know what? I would be mad too during that situation. So I wasn't mad at that part. It's just like, just don't do that to me. Like,
Right.
I would never do that to you, buddy.
Yeah.
And I respect the guy too much. And, after that point in time, I told him, I said, dude, I'm okay. He apologized right away. I was like, dude, it's fine. Just, you
Yeah.
can't do that out there.
Right.
You can come in here. We could talk about it all day, and then it's fine. Like, and look, I love Kevin. I love Kevin,
Yeah.
man. He's awesome. He has business, and I mean business only. He's so low maintenance. And I told him from the original, I wanted him to be a starter on my first year. And the guys were
Yeah.
telling me no, no, no. And finally, when I got my way, he double-digit wins. But,
Hmm.
it was, I'm just glad I got to see him pitch well and, and everything like that. But, and then if I go to another manager and he wants, there's managers sometimes who will say, I want to make the move, but then all of a sudden there's the pressure game and it's like, so what do you want to do? I'm like, hey, you didn't ask,
Yeah.
you didn't ask for that, buddy.
Yeah.
But if you act like you don't want my opinion, but now you want it, like, so I've had that. And then I've also, with Lynn, it was easy. Hey, if we need to get somebody up, all right, who are you thinking? I'm thinking this guy and this guy. Who do you think? And sometimes he'll say this guy and I'll be like, I don't like him. And they'll be like, ah, but I like him. I'm like, all right, well, let's go. I'll back you up.
Sure.
Or the other way. Well, I'll say something or whatever. He'll be like, yeah, but I like this guy. Like, I like Jung Chan. He'll say, I'm like, yeah, but I think Daiwa is better against him right now. I don't think Jung Chan can get it done. And he'll say, all right, get Daiwa and gone. But Len's funny too, though, because like then after the game, if he did terrible, he'd be like, but you said Dayuin was ready. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you can't go back on that. Like, like, you can't do that. But, and it's all fun and games, but yeah, the dynamic was excellent with Lynn and I. Excellent.
Yeah.
No, but don't get it twisted. He's the boss. He's the boss of everything.
Right.
And I
Because
like that, though.
they're the ones out there getting all the boos. They're the ones out there getting all the pressure from the media, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's Lynn or Butner or anybody else. They're normally the ones that will, they will be the ones that get that kind of lays down on the sword.
Yes.
Even if the decision is like that's one of the things that like it's for me. I don't know how to think. It's like how to think about this, which is the manager doesn't play the game, but they are most of the time the ones taking all the blame. So, so at some point, they're taking accountability, so they have some sort of power to make decisions. But at the same time, they're not on the field. So what do you expect them to do?
Yeah, and that's how it is, though.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want that position, you can't complain about the power and the accountability.
Sure, that's right. This is a question I just thought of that I'm fine for. I did not put in the rundown, but you were there during the Juice Ball era, and then you were there also in the post Juice Ball era.
Yes.
And you're on the bad end of that stick, right? You're on the short end of that stick where your pitchers is getting hammered again and again and again. And I was, again, I worked in the 2020 season. That was like the year that they not only had the Juice Ball, but the Hyper Juice Ball. I call it the Hyper Juice Ball era in the first half of that season, where not only was it juiced and like the previous seasons, but it was worse than before. But then after that, it's like
unbelievable.
Yeah, and after that, though, like after they cracked it down, all of the long balls went away. And then, I would imagine life as a pitching coach or life as a pitcher got a little bit easier after that. Not that the runs scored and everything kind of came down a little bit. How did you like as a pitching coach from your perspective? How different was that? How did you manage through the high intensity era of the late teens to the 2020, and then after that, how was that? What was that experience for you?
Well, you could definitely see the difference when 2020 hit. And, it's kind of, you can't really, I don't know, you can't really complain about the baseball that you use. Yes, it sucks, it stinks because, some balls that are getting hit or not shouldn't be getting hit out of the park. I mean, number 22 from Fubon, how many home runs did he have that year? 15? Something ridiculous. And it's like, there's no possible way he's going to have that many home runs again. And a lot of them were like pull side, but guys were in opposite field homers who were just late on fastballs.
John Quinn, the shortstop, had an Oppo home run, and it was just like, how did that happen? I mean, all respect for him, but like, come on, let's be, that's one of those things I still remember to say, like, there's no way.
Oh yeah, and so what I did is instead of complaining about the problem, trying to make a solution, and I would just tell everybody, then we got to get nasty. So like we're going for swing and miss on everything. We have to go, if we go 3-2 to everybody, we go 3-2 to everybody. Well, we're not just trying to let people hit it, because when they do hit it, it's going to go 3 times as far now. And so don't complain about the baseball, just get it to your advantage. They know the balls are juiced. They're going to try to be hitting homers. So get nasty, be more patient, and just get nasty pitches in and out of the zone. Go deeper into the count. Do what you have to do. It also helped that I had DePaula, Miranda, and Roger during that time too, where they're just punching out the world. But it also, look at Unsa that year. Unsa punched out a lot of guys. Look at a lot of the guys that came through that time that were strike. Look at Sai Chiza. Like, look at his numbers when he was out of the bullpen. I mean, he was nasty.
Right.
So you just got to look at it that way. And so just find a solution for it. But the truth of the matter is, if I do my job to make the pitchers as nasty as possible, even though we are giving up home runs and stuff that we shouldn't be giving up, well, in my mind, I have the best pitching staff in the league, so they're going to give up less than us. But we're going to give up less than they will anyways. So that's kind of like where I kind of did it. I can't really complain about them. I just got to make sure I do my job first, and then, complain about other stuff later.
Yeah. So was there like a little change in strategy when the ball got dejuiced?
No, not really. There was just the fact that you could be around the zone more.
Yeah.
And everybody knew they could probably throw more strikes and kind of play ball, stay with the more traditional, stay down in the zone and really locate, make sure you're making your pitches right. But you still have to have that nasty effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know the pitchers during that time in 2020, they won't never forget that time. Like, do you remember those baseballs in 2020? It's like, jeez.
Yeah. And then they kept the same baseballs in the second army in 2020, like the second half. Like they dejuiced it a little bit at the end of the 2020 season, because like after the first half, they're like, oh, this is crazy. So we're going to buy a new set of balls that's dejuiced. But then they only bought enough for the major league games, but not the minor league games. So the minor league games used the same ones at the first half. And then it was just, I mean, talk about just... they were my boss, so I'm just gonna stop right there. When you talked last week, we talked about how Lin Weizhu was managing the minor league team, and it was all like he managed it the same way he would manage the first army team, which was just find ways to win, and through that you're gonna find the best players. In your opinion, do you measure success in the second army the same way, or do you? Is there like a little bit of a change in the formula in measuring success in a second army?
No, not necessarily. I think if you had 4 minor league teams, I think that you would do this differently. But we only have 1. So if there's only 1 other level, there's no discrepancy into those. There's very few. There's very, very little there.
Yes.
So I would want these guys to learn how to win in the minor leagues. I would want them, because that is the first step. It's only one step up and down. So
Yeah.
I want those guys to be prepared. I want them to be in pressure outings. I want them to have, as a pitcher standpoint only, I want them to pitch in close games. I want them to go deeper into games. I need them to be 100 pitch ready. And I don't necessarily want to be a front runner for all of the games, because you still need to develop some of the guys, who are just young. But I would believe that if we're going to play 3 games a week of season games,
Yeah.
I want to win. I have to win 2 of those. On that
Right.
third game, depending on what it is, then you could kind of play the guys. If you won the first 2, then you play that third game of like, we're going to make this a development game. But if you're losing the first game, I'm sorry, but we're going hard for the next 2. We're trying to win. If we win 2 out of 3 all the way through, we're going to be number 1.
Do you think 80 games is too little for the Second Army?
How many?
Is it don't they play 80 games, or is it like
yeah,
it's definitely less than 120?
It's not enough. It's not enough. They should mandatory. I mean, they do it in the majors. It should mandatory be playing at least 4 at the minimum.
A week, 4 a week.
Yeah, minimum.
Yeah.
Yes, like minimum, and
Mhm.
that's where it should be.
So
Yeah.
is it? I don't know if my understanding is correct, but even in like, I think Fubon does this, which is they have 2 groups of Second Army teams. One plays in the league games, and they also have a set of self-organized scrimmages with other teams. Is that how it's being set up?
Yeah, they did that too, and I wasn't really involved into that plan. But a lot of those games are bad though. We're playing some bad teams, and it's better to just not play them. Truthfully, I'd rather just play a really competitive scrimmage with something on the line. Like, let's
Right.
say that the losing team has to buy the other team, breakfast, or losing team has to buy the other team something, or just something. But
Right. There's no urgency in the self-organized games.
no, it would be better if you're gonna play 9 innings, play a 9 inning scrimmage, and play. What you do is you break it down to 3 games, and then you would play the 7th and 8th and 9th inning, and then whoever the winner is, whatever, change it, and then the next game you're starting off with the mindset and the mentality of playing the 7th and the 8th and the 9th inning. So, which is
Right.
the most important part of a game, most of the time. So just kind of like getting into like a high pressure situation for 9 straight innings. And then use the scoreboards, like put the scoreboard up, do everything,
Yeah.
make counts, stealing on it. Nothing, like, we're playing competitively, and
Gotcha.
you can do that, even without pitchers. Like, if you have pitchers that haven't done, just throw a pitching machine up there, have that thing cranked up with some serious speed or whatever, and make it challenging,
Yeah.
and play a legitimate hard game. Now, it's a lot of people would probably disagree with that, but I've seen it happen at a collegiate level, and I've never seen guys get hurt and stuff like that, especially on one of those machine games.
Yeah.
But in the professional style, they probably don't want to go too hard, and I would never say do that in the U.S., but definitely there, I think you could get away with it. I believe you could, definitely. And even if you did it for 3 innings, like, make it real competitive, and if it's good, all right, we're good for the day.
Right. Sounds like, so to me it sounds like, because I've heard of the self-organized scrimmage phenomenon. I just never, like, to me it just sounds like there's no urgency because there's nothing on the line. It's just like you're going through the motions. And it's really easy to do unless a player is very self-motivational, then if you're in that environment, it feels like that environment does not induce you to actually work hard or to be in that same competitive mindset as even like a league sanctioned Second Army game, or let alone First Army game.
Yeah, and most of the time, if you're having those games just to pitch to guys who don't pitch that much, they know they're not on the list, and guess what? They feel terrible. They don't want to pitch in those games, and people will say, "Oh, well, they just need to, be motivated and do this." Yeah, but if it's August, like, come on, let's get real here.
It's all
like,
noon games too, right?
Yeah, like, they don't want to play in those games, and they know that I'm not good enough to pitch in regular games, so it doesn't matter how I do. And guess what? That's pretty true, especially on our side. So I can't speak for anybody else, but yeah, those guys that even if they pitch good in those games, they're not going to pitch.
Right.
And that's not up to me. That was up to them.
Right. Yeah. When you're evaluating a player, I I've heard this story. There was no name mentioned, but I've heard this story where a pitching coach, I think was like a foreign pitching coach, don't know which, I forget which team, or like I'm sure they didn't mention names, but I forget which team. They're like, oh, if they come into the facility, they would ask who can throw like 140, like if their fastball is below 135 kilometers per hour, they will ask who can throw above 135, and then they will only focus on the people who can't throw above 135. Now, to me, 135 seems like a pretty low number. So if you're below that, but for you, was there like a standard in which you would kind of set a standard, and then you would just focus your time on players that's above those standard in the facility when you're developing them?
No, and no, it doesn't. I don't really care how hard they throw or anything like that. But perfect example is Kai Wen.
Mm-hmm.
Kai Wen shoot 137 to sometimes 143, but he's sitting around the 138, 139 range.
Mm-hmm.
So and of course everybody loves the hard throwers
Right.
because there's so much upside. There's so much more that's available. If you have more in the tank, more likely you're gonna have better off speed stuff, and you're gonna be able to spin the ball better in general. But especially in Taiwan, I really don't look at those things as much when evaluating. Like if you're gonna talk about, I'm talking about games and stuff like that. But if you're talking about you want to draft somebody, yeah, don't sit here and draft a guy who's 134.
Right.
That's a different conversation entirely. But like when it gets to like when they're wearing this uniform and they're on the field, well, we kind of just I have to treat them just as good as I do anybody else on that team. But if I'm a major league pitching coach, then it's different. I can't spend time with him because I'm not about
Yeah.
developing. I'm about winning baseball games and give me the best player for that job. If I'm a minor league pitching coach, which I really have never been there, I never was. So I would do it differently on the development side. Yes, 100%. But that wasn't I wasn't in those conversations, and if I was, I didn't. Especially when I was in the majors, I let the minor leagues do what they wanted to do. Just make sure they have guys ready. Is basically what I wanted. Great.
In our conversation before we started the series, you talked about the materials and content you use to train your pitchers, and you mentioned an example where you made it a point to bring up materials and examples of like that happened in the CPBL rather than using examples that happen in the major leagues. Can you talk about that philosophy a little bit? Where what is your thinking behind? Why did you pursue that way of coaching?
I think I don't know. It's just something that I guess when I was a player, I didn't like when people would like show examples of like elite pitchers or something that was just over the top elite. I just like it just seems like an unattainable thing. And what I found, especially over time, is that a lot of the Taiwanese players would say, well, this is Taiwan, this is not the United States. So why would I use somebody who is in the United States who they don't relate? So I wanted to get something relatable of somebody, even if it's a foreigner, if they're pitching here, they're a foreigner and we're all equal. So I would use the foreigner here, but for the most part, I would try to stay away from using the foreigner. I'd try to use a local guy, whoever's having success during that time. Like
Right.
the closer for he was a closer for Fubon. He played for the Brothers, and then he went to be a closer for Fubon, and then now he's with the Monkeys. I actually don't know
No
his
way.
name.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, when you look at his numbers as a closer when he was with Fubon, oh, I mean, I would use him as an example, but like, why is he so good? Why is he, like, I want to take a deeper dive of like, look at him. He's not afraid. Look at his demeanor. Look at his attitude. Look at these things. So I think that's a great example. Instead of going to an elite closer like Great Kimbrel, and try to use him as an example. There's just an unrelatable thing on that, I think. Like, yeah, you can see it, whatever, but that guy also throws 100 miles an hour. It's just a different setup. There's 50,000 people in the stands. It's just, you can't necessarily see it. You could use them for like pitch selection and stuff like that. But I think overall, I think using as that as an example, using him as an example is actually a really great idea. Now, I think on the hitting side, I think it changes. I think you can use it, especially base running and things like that. I think we can do that, especially with guys like Ray.
Baseball
For
IQ
us.
stuff.
Yeah, like looking at guys like Ricky Henderson steal bases. Like, how did he do it? Like, wow. Like, look at his read. Look at Otani. Like watch how quick his jumps are. Watch how he steals. Watch this. Like, now those things are just like so good to watch. But on the pitching side, it's just different sometimes. Yeah, for me, I just thought it was better. It was a better idea and well suited to do it that way.
So I've wondered, you know, there's the philosophy of developing or making the best CPPL pitcher. Like if a person comes in, I want him to be the best CPPL pitcher ever. And there is also, I don't know if this is true, but we talked about last episode the difference between the CPPL has its own characteristics. So is between the goal of setting like building the best CPPL pitcher versus the best pitcher. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but do you, like when somebody comes in raw and is there like a, I want him to be the best CPPL pitcher he can be or the best pitcher that he can be. Is there a little like what is the difference between those two? There may not be, but is there a difference between those two? Because when I think about how pitchers like Golden Ray on number 18 on the Lions, he's now in Japan. Now, I wonder if when he comes into this league or he comes to the Lions, is you as a your end goal could be I want him to be the best CPPL pitcher that he can be. There could also be a different way of thinking. I want him to be the best pitcher he can be, and maybe like go have success abroad. Now, I don't know if the difference between the two is that big, but I'm asking you do you think about stuff that way, and whether you see it also being played out in Taiwanese development.
So I'll give you a lot of insight on that part. I will use the UNSA as my gauge for a local pitcher. When I came in, I thought I saw him get rehab, and I knew that there was something special there. I could see that he has body awareness, and he had a mental toughness. Like, he had a lot of the good things sort of like the things you couldn't teach, stuff that required no talent, and he also had talent. So I was like, "Ooh, that's a special." At that moment in time, I knew that he was going to be something special, and I wanted him to aim higher. Not only do I want you to be the best pitcher in the district, the county, the city, and the country, I want you to go and look outside of this too as well. I actually don't want you to pitch for me. I want you to move up. And I've told all the foreigners that 1,000,000%. I love you. I'm glad that you're here, but guess what? I don't want you here. Like a guy like Eric Stout, I hated seeing him come back last year. Even though he's not my guy, I'm like, ugh. Like, I don't want you here, like, at all. Like, ugh. Like, you shouldn't be here. I need you to be somewhere else. DePaula, I've also wanted that for him, and so has he. But guess what? The brothers have made it almost impossible to leave because they're giving him everything that he wants and that he needs. And he's probably one of the best guys to ever have, like, because he's so low maintenance. It's unfreaking believable. So, but for locals and everything, I'm not trying to be the best here. Like that's the local law. You need to be the best that you can be and then look for the stars.
Sure.
Like that's the
Yeah.
main goal. That overall, yes, I want us to win games, but guess what? I'd rather you move up and move on in your life and get an experience that you'll never be able to get back again. You only have a little tiny time frame. I would never take that away from you. As a player gets, I would always want them to reach for the stars and go higher than where they're at and see if they can get to the absolute pinnacle, because
Mhm.
that's where it all is. Why do we play this? Just to be a CPBL pitcher? I hope not.
Right, right. Yeah, I think, yeah, because that's one of the questions that is stemmed from the CPBL material versus MLB material kind of discussion. Because I was like, it could be, when coaches bring up, you know, stuff material from the major leagues, it could be because they think that they want them to be, they want to emulate that because they think that's that's their ceiling. It could be just the timing's not right or stuff like that. But I think it's a mentality thing where it's like I want to build the best CPPL pitcher, and I was just wondering if that goal could be a little bit different versus I want to build the best pitcher that this person could be. It is I just is there like I was just wondering if there's a difference, and if there's when there is a difference, how do you approach that when you are developing players? But Juan's, you're right. His stuff in 2020 season was, I mean, we talked about the hyper juice ball era, and he dominated that season.
Oh, so
So
good.
he was so good, and he was pitching like a foreign player,
Oh,
foreign pitcher at the time.
100%. I mean, he was
Yeah,
leading. I took screenshots of the CPBL website every time one of the brothers would be in the top five, and he was the top pitcher over
yeah,
everybody,
yeah,
and I think he got hurt. Something happened, I think his ankle or whatever, and it kind of went off a little bit, but still, that's game four starter. That's
yeah,
our game four starter at Lions.
yeah,
Like I was like,
yeah,
and I was like, we have the advantage because we actually have four foreigners now.
yeah.
Like we had DePaula, we had we had
Brandon
everybody.
Rogers. Yeah,
Yeah, like we had them, and then we had Unsa. Like we had that missing link. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Um, this is also a listener question. Uh, During your time with the brothers, which pitcher worked the hardest? And the second part is the direct opposite of that. Who would you want? Who would you wanted to see probably reach their potential a little bit better during your time?
All right. So I can't necessarily give you the worst one because it would surprise
Okay,
you, and I'm not going to put him
sure,
out
that's
there
fine.
like that. I can't do that. But I will give you, there are some hard ones that really, really stand out. And oh boy, Ikai.
Uh-huh.
Ikai, number
Oh, okay.
54. Oh boy. That kid gets after it. And I mean, he is there every day, before everybody, getting his work in, no matter what. And he gets his conditioning done hard. He does his weight stuff. He does everything, and he does it. Oh, I wish we had 100 of them.
Hmm.
Like, it's unbelievable. Especially last year, I will give him all of the credit. Last year, he could barely play catch to a certain point during his rehab. I mean, it was rough to watch. He was hurting. But I put him on a different shoulder routine, and I kept him accountable. I didn't want to sit there and watch him do it, but
Yeah.
he went out and did it himself, and I showed him what he needed to do, and did it, and he did it every single time he needed to. And he played catch every day, even though it was hard. He trusted in me and what we were doing, changing his whole program. And look at what happened. He was back in the big leagues last year, and he did well, and he was pitching well, and he didn't get hurt. So
Yeah.
he that is all due to what he put into it, and a lesser person would have quit or wouldn't have got to that level
Yeah.
because they just didn't have that level of work ethic.
Hmm.
And then as another guy, oh gosh, wait, Yue Han, gosh, I don't even know what number he is now. He used to be number 8, reliever, left-hander, real small guy. And then
Okay. I I'm on the brothers website. I can't find them right now.
No, and then Sen number 38. That guy
Hmm.
works his butt off. He looks like, I mean, seriously, he could be on Men's Fitness. Heck,
Yeah.
he could be on Men's Fitness magazine. He is absolutely built like an Adonis god. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. But those guys are those three guys. I mean, they stand out, man. They really work their absolute butts off.
Right. And I mean, you mentioned it too last week. Being in the brother system, there it is. It's competitive. And when I, when during the free agency market this year has been great. In the CPPL, you got Chen Zihao signing with the Dragons. Zhang
Uh-huh.
Zixian was looking elsewhere, and then my mom and I was sitting down doing the exercise, thinking like, who would you pick? Like who? Because when you get picked, there's like this 28-man roster that you protect, and you have to make it like the old team gets a compensation, right? And we
Yep.
were just sitting down, we were going through the exercise, and we're looking through each team's roster and pointing out like who we want to, who like this guy you want to protect, yes, this guy want to protect, yes. And when we looked at the brothers roster, and there was so much more than 28 that we wanted to protect, and so the
Yes.
brothers roster, I mean, the facilities and everything there, the brothers has the best roster out there among the league, and I bet it's just very competitive even outside of the First Army roster, right? It's competitive in Pingdong, I would imagine.
It
Trying to
is.
be true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
it is.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, nothing much. I would encourage more free agents and everything to go out there and get as much money possible and go out there and play for different teams. Taiwan's small, so even if you're from
Yeah.
Taichung, hey, play for football. If you're from,
Yeah.
in Taipei, play for the Lions. Like
Yeah.
it's really short. It's a 2-hour train ride.
Right.
you know,
Right.
you're not going like in the States, like you're from Florida, but you live in California. Like it's not that way where it's a 5-hour flight. So
Yeah.
it's and now you just disperse a little bit. Go out and I would encourage way more free agent signs and trades and everything. Like, man, you could do so many different things.
Yeah. A couple of listener questions. These are more just lifestyle stuff, less
So
in
one
in
of
the
them I
weed
think you
stuff.
sent to me. I'm looking forward to reading that to giving my
Well,
on that one.
yeah. Well, I want to ask first of all, how many times do you have to explain to friends and family that you weren't actually working in China, considering that you're working at the Chinese professional baseball league?
Not actually not many times at all. Truthfully.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it never was. It's always I worked in Taiwan. I've never had to explain, anything like that. I would say CPBL is the Chinese Professional Baseball League, but nobody would say, "Oh, is that in China?" Because most of the people that I'm around, I'm in Taiwan. I live in Taiwan. That's where I live, and yeah, well, I guess technically it depends on who you talk to. It's whatever Taiwan, China, or whatever people
Yeah.
want to say. But I live in Taiwan,
Yeah.
so that's what I've never said. The only when I was in Changzhou or in
Right. Right.
Nanjing
Right.
or
Right.
Wuxi, I'm in mainland. It's
Yeah.
it's different, but I've never had to explain that to anybody. No, everybody understood.
Yeah, can't relate here as the former Twitter person. I have to tell everybody, hey, we're the CPPL, but like, hey, let's make sure we're on the same page.
Hey, yeah,
When
no, I've,
we're
I've I've really never had to. The only question I've been asked is like, is it safe?
yeah,
That was
yeah,
like
yeah,
about it. That was about it.
yeah. Um, did you get how often do you get recognized in public when you're working with the brothers, and how do fans normally react when they see you on the streets?
Not not even like everywhere, all the time. I mean, I can't tell you. I've countless times I've given fans or whoever my line account and tell them call me anytime. I will get you tickets. Or I if there's a fan out there that I haven't signed for, I'm sorry, but I've signed for every person. I will never say no. I never will because that's another thing that goes away. One day they stop asking you.
Yeah,
I'm recognized on the Gautier on the on the high speed train. I'm recognized everywhere. So, and I always take those with like, please take a picture. Like, yes, of course, I'm just a normal person. I just had a high
Mhm.
profile job.
Yeah.
Um, I've they no matter if I'm with the family or wherever, of course, I'll always take the time for our fans, always, no matter what. And it's always been great. It's in Taiwan. It's always been great. I've never had any
Yeah.
issues
And brothers fans everywhere, right? In Taiwan, there's just so
everywhere.
many of them,
I've
so many.
actually, I've actually been. I was in street clothes outside of the Tokyo Dome, and
Oh
somebody
no
came up
way.
to me and recognized me and like Fawcett. I'm like, yes, I love the brothers. Like, can I get a photo? I'm like,
Oh,
of
that's
course.
crazy.
I got
Yeah.
recognized at Tokyo Disneyland
Oh
by a
wow.
fan who came with me and my family, and I took a picture with them, with my whole family and their family.
Yeah.
You're like, there's like, I love it. It's awesome. Like if they like if they know me and like me enough to recognize me, come up and ask me, they're they're in my circle. Please come. Like anything you want.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you people who are going to listen to this who actually who do speak English are going to know that that's the fact. I'll sit there and
Yeah.
give people my line account right there. I don't care. Like
Mhm.
I've done it many times. There was a really there was this one kid who I could see, and I need to text him again, but um I could tell that he was handicapped, and I could see, that he was having a hard time, and mom was having a hard time and everything. And I remember going out and giving him a jersey and everything, and giving her my line account, and like it chokes me up. But like for my birthday, I remember he sent me a happy birthday message, and I was like, that means the
Oh,
absolute. That means like, whoosh, it like
yeah.
chokes me up now, but like that meant the world to me. I am so happy that I can do that for somebody. And I
Yeah.
would seriously, I'd love to do more. But sometimes the Taiwanese are very shy.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
we
they were
are.
more outgoing, I'd be like, please, it's all good. I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it, and I'm pretty sure I'll still get recognized at some point in time if I go back and visit.
Um,
And actually, right
I
now, there is somebody online right now that I have on my Instagram who, right when I get back, and I'm here and there now, but I told him I will. I'm gonna send him my first jersey because there was some mix up where I couldn't get to him, or I couldn't sign something, or some sort of mix up. So I said, well, I'll make it a point that I'm gonna sign something. Give me your address. I'm gonna sign it on my Oakland A's stuff, on my athletic stuff. I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna sign it, and I'm gonna send it to you. And I'm gonna give you some baseballs and do whatever I can. You'll be the first one to ever have it from me while being in Taiwan for my first job outside. So I'll do anything for people. I really will, for anything.
um there was also somebody wrote in and said he wanted you to know that he was very moved by your story about coming to the stadium after losing Game 7 of the 2020 series. Now he's a Lions
Uh,
fan, so I mean, he obviously he was ecstatic about that series, but it's something that fans don't really think about when they're watching. But hearing a story about like seeing the streamer still laying on the in the stadium, um, that reflecting on that and how you were able to see that and making like make it a point to push yourself as a to be a better pitching coach and help the team. It struck a nerve for him, and so yeah, I mean that story. It's one of those stories where you only hear it in more in-depth interviews where you're like, yeah, that like that one time when I was at the stadium and you see the stream, yeah, that really hit hard because most people, like 99% of everybody else leaves the stadium the following day. So,
yes,
um,
nobody goes back to next, especially the
no,
next day.
yeah, yeah,
No, that was, and I'm glad somebody really picked up that and could understand that, and that struck a nerve with them, because it's definitely struck a nerve with me.
yeah,
I dedicated 365 days to not let that ever happen again.
yeah,
So yeah, and I can still remember it. Even when I think back of it, I can still remember looking up, and I could tell you what seat it was hanging off of, just flowing in the wind, the orange streamer
yes,
just sitting there. I was like, like
Yeah.
I can't believe we lost that last night, and then try to get back and get it like, all right, I'm not here for that. Like, listen
Yeah.
to
I mean, I love that series. The way that the story of that series panned out from a third party point of view, very fun series to cover. But
Yeah.
I want to hear your perspective because I talked about this on this podcast many times. Before Game 7, I was in the stadium, and like many other media members, I was in the stadium looking at watching teams warm up, stuff like that. I remember vividly, till this day, I can remember seeing the uneasiness of the brothers players because at the time, the brothers had not won a championship in any years, and they always came up
11.
short every single time. And it was, and then they're seeing the same, like down up 3-1 and getting the 2015 series showing up in their head, and a lot of them were on that team, and I could tell that fear, the uneasiness within that locker room. And I remember, like, Joe Suchi was a great veteran. He's very good with his words. And that was like the only player the brothers allowed to interview that day. Because we talked a little bit about the PR culture with the brothers, but it's also the fact that I don't think a lot of players on the team was in the right headspace to get interviewed by the media. 20 minutes later, we were on the other side of the field. We were inside the Lions not locker room, the dugout. We were allowed to go inside of the dugout and see how the players was warming up. Totally 100%, 180-degree difference. They were easy. They were having fun. They were smiling. They were talking to us like we were their family members. There was a very real difference in the atmosphere within the locker room pre-Game 7. Was I right in feeling the same anxiety within the brothers locker room that day?
100%. Yeah. Yes. 100%.
And was it something that Game 5, was it much different? Was it also the anxiety of we need to close this out before the nightmares get back in us?
No, the dynamic was just so different. I can't really explain it because I actually tried to strike that from my memory. But
I'm sorry.
no, I'm kidding. But more of, oh, we're up 3-1. All right, we can relax. All right, we lost. Now it's 3-2. Well, we still have 2 more games. All right, now it's 3-3. What are we gonna do?
The panic.
In a way, but we had the right guys on the mound.
Yeah.
We had everything working in our favor, and it wasn't like we weren't trying. I mean, I can only speak for the pitchers, and we gave our absolute hearts out.
Yeah.
But it just gets down to the point they wanted it more. The best team.
That Game 7. Yeah.
They wanted it more, man, and they weren't afraid. They weren't afraid of losing.
Right.
We were more afraid of losing than we were happy or trying to win. It seemed like.
And you can feel that. That was palpable.
Well,
Definitely.
and
from
I learned a lot
like
from that.
up there.
I learned a lot from that because in that particular season, when we went back in 2021, I got to see the dynamic. So I know what it was like in that situation. And we also had a new manager at that time, which was Lynn.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember we were at CC Lake. And when we were playing at CC Lake, I could witness us doing the same crap. I could see the demeanor. I could see them not caring about certain things. I could see some certain things that we hadn't addressed fully yet. And I remember at the end of the game, I talked to Lynn. I told him I can see what's happening here, and I had said that the same thing is happening that happened last year, and he said he's like, well, I wasn't here, I can't see it. I said, well, I can see it, and nobody's going to tell you. And then at the end of the game, we had a team meeting. We wanted to talk, and then he came. He's like, does anybody have anything? And I said no at first, and then right when Lynn was going to say something, I was like, yeah. And I probably talked, I don't even know how long it was. but I pretty much said what I wanted to say. It's like I feel that nobody's bought in, nobody's done this. I kind of wore 'em out hard. And it's not necessarily a speech, it's just how I felt. And because especially I put 11 months into that where I didn't see my family.
Mm,
I saw, and like at the end of the season, it just seemed like everybody was just kind of checked in, checked out, like, all right, see you guys next year. I'm like, ugh.
right.
Like we just lost the biggest game of like potentially your lives. Like, how are, what is going on? How are you just okay with this? And that's when I realized I was like, I'll never let that happen again. So just said like, this is not a job where you just check in, check out, and then you just go home. There's more to this. We're a family here. Like there's sacrifice. We need to be in this, and I kind of gave it to him pretty hard. Um, and Lynn backed that up. Lynn backed me up on that right after when he spoke, and then we ended up just dominating from that point all the way through.
You're right.
And I'm not going to say it was me by any means, because they are who they are, but that was the fact. And I didn't want to lose again. And if we did lose, at least I had said what I had to say of what I saw the previous year. So I didn't really care. As long as I got to say what I said, they're going to make up their decision as a player, whether they're going to get it done or whether they're going to complain about why they're losing. Yeah.
Sure.
So that's the way I looked at it.
All right, back to the more easy questions, because that was one that question I wanted to see if you felt the same thing, because it was
Of course,
so the two locker rooms. When you came back to the U.S., how disappointing are the convenience stores in the U.S. now that you have seen the towny 7-Elevens?
That is a brilliant question, by the way. Oh, so disappointed, like beyond disappointed. It's not even close. Like, man,
it's the same brand, the same name, but nothing else is the same. Yeah, nothing else.
There is nothing the same at all. Like, I tell people all the time, like, do you want to make photocopies, pictures? Do you want to copy pictures? Do you want to pay your child's tuition, a phone bill? Do you want to send a DHL Express letter? Do you want to buy concert tickets, call a taxi, baseball tickets, CPBL tickets? Do you want
buy the best coffee?
Buy the best coffee. Yeah, I mean, I would go in there, Youngadabe Mesa Cafe. Like I would go every single day, or yen my latte. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bingo Yeda, and
yeah.
I miss that so much. Oh my gosh. Like, and like that, you could get meals there, and
yes,
and not just like crap food. Like you could get salads with chicken breast, and you could get soba noodles, cold noodles, hot noodles, spaghetti. Like,
and they're pretty good. Like they're freshly made, by the way.
Yes, they have dates on them. And I never got anything bad from 7-Eleven. Well, partly too because everybody eats there, and it's this turnaround is just, it's so fast that everything goes like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And the amount of drinks that they have, like the amount of teas, and I mean, holy smokes! You can get a caramel macchiato, a bubble tea, an Americano, a latte, an oat milk latte, or a hot chocolate, a Ghirardelli hot chocolate. Like you can do everything there, and some of them even toast your sandwiches. Some of them, like you have the regular basic hot dogs, but you can get fresh sweet potatoes, and like oh my god, and the hot dogs and the tea eggs are, I love those. My kids love them. And then some of them, depending on like if you're in the Gautier, if you're in the HSR, you get like the 7-Eleven that has like baozi's in there.
Yes.
And like, oh my goodness, like anything you want. Like I mean, unless you've seen it, like you can't even explain how awesome it is. If I need a document printed, all I have to do is send it to the IBAN.
Yes.
And then I just go there and I get it printed out, and it's legitimately 3NT.
Yeah.
It's like,
and that's considered expensive. But still, it's so convenient. It's and then like when there's they always have the automatic doors, and then you walk in. The first thing to smell is the tea eggs, and you're like, oh, home. and then you
Oh,
walk, and then you do whatever you need to do, and there's just so much stuff there. Um, yeah, there's no way to explain it. You know, not
I'd
even
like to know.
bodegas beat it. Yeah,
I would love to know who asked that question because that's somebody who's traveled a little bit. Because like, I would love to be like, I would love to be somebody from Taiwan and to live, be born and raised in Taiwan, but you spoke
yeah,
perfect English, but you lived only in Taiwan for like 20 years, and then you went
yes,
to the US and went to a 7-Eleven with the same expectations. I would want to be there to video that. Just to say
yeah,
like, wait, like you guys don't have anything here.
yeah. Yes. Ironically, the guy's from Canada, and to my knowledge, well, I mean, we're in this group chat together. Ironically, I don't think he's visited Taiwan, but whenever I have a foreign like a CPPO personnel, like former personnel on the show, I always ask him about either your go-to 7-Eleven order, which Brendan Hakens also went on like a pretty nice, not a rant, but like what he orders at the 7-Eleven too, and like the same
Oh yeah,
reaction as yours. Um, do you go
I
to
have
those
a great
breakfast
order there.
places?
I have a
Do you
great
go to
order
those
there. Like,
breakfast? Yeah. Well, what is your order?
well, most of the time I'll do is I'll get the smoked chicken breast and then either the cold soba noodles, or I'll just get 2 chicken breasts and a sweet potato.
Do you
It's
what
like,
coffee like? Oh, you actually you did talk about your coffee order. I mean, the coffee order there is so much better than everybody else's. It's like, what's the point of going to Starbucks anymore in Taiwan? Like, there's no point
yeah,
to me.
no, it's really not. It's super quick, super easy. I mean, it gets to the point where they see me so much, I just come in, they just go 1 or 2. I don't have to
Yeah.
say anything anymore. They already know what they're gonna
Yeah.
give me. What did
Do you
you?
go to the boba places a lot?
No, I don't. My daughter loves it, and my son, they love it. So they'll
Or do you go
go
to those
whenever.
breakfast places?
Of course.
What's your
What's
go-to
the?
breakfast
Oh
order?
man, what's the place? Like you can go to the what was that place on the corner? Oh my gosh, how am I at a blank right now?
Like all those
Uh
sandwiches and stuff, right?
yeah, it was like you get sandwich or you can get pasta or
Yes.
um it's kind of like a ba feng, but it's the
Oh,
breakfast place.
interesting.
I'm trying to think of it. They're all over the place. I can't remember
I
it
mean,
now.
I know Merame, but that's just the only that's like the go-to name
Oh, there's like
as a
what's it?
franchise.
It's like a GMP, right? A good morning. So there's like a GMP.
Huh. Okay.
I
Not
can't
aware of
remember the
that.
name of it. It was right on the corner. We went there all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not.
What's your breakfast order?
Oh, it's dumb being all the way.
Oh my goodness. What's inside?
Oh,
What's inside? Or do you get it plain?
but I'll do whatever, seriously. But the only one I don't really like is the tuna one. But I'll do
Oh.
anything else. Like I'll do the dumping with cheese, corn, ham, bacon, the smoked chicken. I don't care, just as long as it's not tuna.
Right.
But
Have you?
I
Yeah.
like
Go
the
ahead.
dumping that's not like the fluffy one. I like the one that's almost like a tortilla. It's like a thin. It's a
Okay.
little bit tougher. Oh man, I can. Oh, I love those so much.
Ham, cheese,
Oh,
corn, whatever. It's.
whatever, just not tuna.
Have you tried? Did you try sticky tofu when you're in Taiwan? You've been
You know
7 years.
I didn't, and I don't regret not trying it at all.
Why not?
I just don't. I mean, I'm not. I'm just not. I'm not too like adventurous when it comes to eating new things, and especially if it's eating something that smells like that. Um,
So
I
you
don't.
smelled it before, but not.
Oh my goodness, are you kidding? If somebody down the street here, if I was walking down the street and they had a stinky tofu, I would know instantaneously that's stinky tofu. It just has a very distinct smell. My kids have tried it. I don't think my wife has tried it, but my kids have tried it. They said they liked it, and I'll take
Uh,
their word for it. But I'm just gonna stay on the outside of that one.
wow. What's the what is the was there other exotic food that people made you try? Or I mean, I don't think there's Taiwan there's too much exotic
No,
food.
no, no, really. We didn't. Taiwan. We didn't. I mean, we went to this really nice restaurant one time. I try to think where it was. It was with the team after we had won. I think we had won. I think so.
Mhm.
And we went there the next year for spring training. And I remember it was like a really nice restaurant in Taichung, and they had like the chicken feet.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I'm really gonna pass on that. I'm sorry. And the only reason why I would pass on it is because I've actually seen the inside of a chicken coop, and I don't want to eat what they're walking around in. Absolutely not. I don't
Oh.
care what they clean it with. I'm good for that one. I'm good.
Well,
I don't care how good you say it is.
if you ever want to you try it, there are chicken feet in dim sum places all over the U.S. So
Oh
if
yeah.
you've ever wanna, but you've been to Din Tai Fung, right?
Well, absolutely. I've been to Din
What's
Tai
your
Fung.
go-to Din Tai Fung order?
Oh my goodness. So it depends. I love their shrimp fried rice. I think it's excellent. But
Mhm.
I always get xiao long bao, the truffle xiao long bao, and then
Oh,
we'll
the
get
truffle
the
ones.
oh my goodness, they're like so soupy on the inside, or so
Yeah.
delicious. And then I will get the noodle soup too, the beef noodle soup. Um, I'll do wonton, like I'll do everything's
Spicy
good there. It just depends
wontons.
on what I feel.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everything is good. I'll get the shao mai. I love the shao mai.
Oh, yeah.
I love the
Yep.
shao mai, and then I'll do pork shao long bao. And then I always get the chocolate shao long bao at the end. That's kind of
Oh,
like a
really? Oh,
go-to.
the
The kids
chocolate
still
ones?
talk about it. Kids still talk about it. Like, hey, remember
It,
with
it
the Din Tai Fung?
yeah. There's a few in the West Coast, so you're close to
Oh yeah,
okay, my God, this is the
there
one
there's
San
quite a
Diego
few.
might be the closest. Yeah,
There's one there. There's some in Los Angeles. There's one in
yeah.
Las Vegas. Um, yeah,
You're closer to them than I am. So
yes, I am. Still a plane ride. Still a plane ride away.
yeah.
But yeah,
No, appreciate you coming on the show this week again. And there's a couple more coming up as well. The next one I want to ask you about what your take on the state of the CPBL and state of Taiwanese baseball. This one is more about you as a coach and the development philosophies and stuff like that. But
yeah.
a lot of food talk, which I love, and a lot of stuff that's very clippable. But I really appreciate you spending time with me on this Sunday afternoon again.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And you know, if anybody out there wants to put in more questions or whatever, please go ahead, fire away. We'll pick the best. Well, you'll pick the best.
Yeah, I'll definitely definitely if you have questions or comments, please let us know. We love to interact with you. There's a couple more coming up, so get your questions in. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Of course. Thanks.